Kirixal opened his eyes to darkness. Only the faint glow of emergency lights cast shadows across the control room of the Stellar Seeker. He checked the life support readout on his wrist device. 32 days of oxygen remained. Each day, that number grew smaller. Each day the silence grew louder. He floated from his sleep pod to the main control panel, his four-fingered hands moving automatically through the daily routine. First, check systems. Life support functioning at minimal. Capacity engines dead, communications array destroyed. Second, scan for nearby vessels. Nothing as always. Third, send distress signal broadcasting, though no one was listening on these old frequencies. Day 312 of isolation. Kirixal spoke into his personal recorder. No change. In ship status. No response to distress signals. His voice sounded strange to him now. In the past, an Aldari would never speak without purpose, without another to hear. Yet these recordings had become his anchor to sanity. The Stellar Seeker had been a research vessel, studying spatial anomalies at the edge of the Cygnus void. Their mission was routine until the event, a sudden surge of energy that tore through the ship. The rest of the crew, all 17 of them, died instantly when the crew quarters decompressed. Kirixal survived only because he had been in the shielded observation bay. He pushed himself toward the viewport. Stars stared back, cold and distant. Somewhere out there was home, the Aldari Confederation with its 15 worlds and trillion citizens. They had given up on him long ago. It was the logical choice. Expending resources to search for a single scientist beyond the calculated survival window would be inefficient. Efficiency. Kirixal had lived by this principle his entire life. The Aldari way valued logic above all, else emotions were primitive things to be acknowledged but never indulged. Yet after 10 months alone, drifting through the emptiness of space, Kirixal found himself experiencing feelings that had no place in Aldari society: loneliness, fear, hope. He pulled himself to the food synthesizer and programmed his daily nutrition cube. The machine sputtered, producing a gray block that tasted of nothing. As he ate, Kirixal reviewed the star charts on the main screen. If his calculations were correct, the Stellar Seeker had drifted into an uncharted region, far from regular trade routes or patrol paths. "Computer, replay the last received transmission," Kirixal said. The speakers crackled. "Research vessel Stellar Seeker, this is Aldari Command. Your distress signal has been received. A search party has been dispatched to your last known coordinates. Estimated arrival 14 days. Maintain life support conservation protocols." That message had arrived 298 days ago. The search party came and went, finding nothing in the vastness of space. The Stellar Seeker had already drifted too far, pushed by the energy wave from the anomaly. Kirixal turned to his personal project, a small garden in the observation bay. Using seeds from the ship's biological research stores, he had created a tiny ecosystem. Purple leaves stretched toward the artificial light, another living thing in this metal coffin. He carefully measured water into the soil. Even facing death, the scientist in him observed, recorded, learned. Plants showing increased growth since supplementing with processed nutrition cubes, he noted. Adaptation occurs even in the most unlikely circumstances. Like him, these plants were adapting. Like him, they fought to live when logic said they should die. The ship's alarm suddenly blared, startling Kirixal. He rushed to the console, heart pounding in his chest. The proximity alert was active. Something was approaching. For a moment, wild hope surged through him. Had the Confederation sent another search party? Had they broken with efficiency for him? The scanner showed a piece of space debris, a fragment of some destroyed vessel, tumbling past. Not rescue, just another dead thing in the void. The hope drained from him, leaving a hollow feeling that Aldari training couldn't suppress. Kirixal's wrist device beeped, reminding him to check the hibernation pod. If his oxygen supply dropped below 20 days, he would need to enter hibernation, his last option for survival. The pod would slow his body functions, stretching the remaining air for up to a year in which no one would come. He ran, Diagnostics on the pod. All systems functional, but the power required would further drain the ship's failing batteries. Eventually, the distress beacon would go dark. Kirigzal would truly disappear. That night, though there was no true night, in space only the artificial cycle maintained by the ship's computers, Kirigzal dreamed of his homeworld. He saw the towering crystal spires of the Science Academy, felt the warm breeze from the dual suns, heard the harmonious sounds of a society built on perfect order. He woke to tears on his face, another unbecoming emotion. Wiping them away, he returned to his routine, check systems, scan for vessels, send distress signal. Days passed. 25 days of oxygen remained, then 20. The ship's computer began suggesting hibernation with increasing frequency. On the day the readout showed 19 days remaining, Kirigzal made his decision. He recorded one final log. Final entry before hibernation. The probability of rescue is now calculated at 0.0087%. Logically, my death is almost certain, yet I find myself unable to accept this logic. I will enter hibernation with the distress beacon active. Perhaps this is what separates sentient life from mere calculation. We hope despite the numbers. We persist despite the void. Kirigzal programmed the hibernation sequence and sealed his personal effects in a storage container. His notes, recordings, and a sample of the plants he had grown. Even if he never woke, perhaps someday, someone would find this ship. They would know he had been here, that he had survived as long as possible, that he had not given up. The hibernation pod opened with a hiss. Kirigzal took one last look at the stars through the viewport. Then he entered the pod and closed his eyes as the cold gas filled the chamber. His breathing slowed. His heart barely beat. Time stretched and bent around him as the ship continued its silent journey through the darkness. The distress beacon, a small blinking light on the ship's exterior, continued its steady pulse. A faint signal on an old frequency that most modern ships no longer monitored. A whisper in the vastness of space growing fainter as power reserves dwindled. A message no one would hear, until many days later, a ship appeared on the edge of the scanner's dying range. A ship of unusual design. A human ship. The Earth exploration vessel Horizon cruised through the uncharted region of space, its engines humming with steady power. Captain Frank Morrison sat in the command chair, watching his crew work with quiet pride. The Horizon wasn't the biggest, or newest ship in Earth's fleet, but it had something special, a crew that worked together like family. Status report, Officer Rodriguez, Captain Morrison said. Tina Rodriguez tapped her navigation console. All systems normal, Captain. We're on course for the Vega sector. Should reach it in about 6 days at current speed. Morrison nodded and turned to Sam Kelly, who was checking the engine readouts. How are the engines holding up, Sam? Purring like kittens, Captain, the engineer replied with a smile. That adjustment to the coolant system is working better than expected. The Horizon had been in deep space for almost 8 months. Their mission was simple but important. Map uncharted regions and look for planets that might support human life. Earth was crowded, and humanity needed options. Unlike other species in the galaxy, humans explored out of curiosity as much as necessity. They wanted to know what was over the next hill, beyond the next star. This had confused the few alien races they had met. Why expend resources without guaranteed return? The answer was simply that humans couldn't help themselves. Diana Wright, the ship's medical officer, entered the bridge with a tablet in her hand. Captain, I've finished the crew health assessments. Everyone's in good shape, though I'm recommending more vitamin D supplements. Too much time in artificial light. Make it happen, Doctor, Morrison said. The regular sounds of the bridge were interrupted when Olivia Grant, seated at the communications station, suddenly sat up straight. Her hand moved to her earpiece, pressing it closer. Captain, I'm picking up something strange, she said. A signal, very weak, using an old frequency band. Alan Peterson, the science officer, moved to her station. Let me see. He looked at her screen and frowned. That's a distress beacon, but it's using a protocol that hasn't been standard for at least 15 years. Captain Morrison stood up. Can you pinpoint the source? Olivia's fingers danced over her console. It's coming from grid sector 227A, about 2 days from our current position if we alter course. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Investigating would delay their primary mission. Fuel and supplies were calculated for their planned route. A detour would mean cutting short their exploration of the Vega sector. What's the protocol in this situation, Captain? Alan asked quietly. Morrison knew the answer. Protocol stated they should log the signal, report it when they returned to Earth, and continue their mission. Resources were precious in deep space. Detours were discouraged unless essential. We're going to check it out, Morrison said. His announcement caused a stir on the bridge. Tina looked up from her station. Captain, that would mean... I know what it means, Officer Rodriguez. Morrison cut in firmly. Plot a course to the signal source, maximum safe speed. Sam Kelly frowned. Captain, we've been pushing the engines pretty hard. This detour will use up our reserve fuel cushion. Noted, Engineer Kelly, Morrison replied. Dr. Wright, how long could we stretch our supplies if necessary? Diana thought for a moment. If we're careful, we could extend by about 3 weeks. That should be more than enough, Morrison said. Then he addressed the entire bridge crew. Look, I understand this isn't in the mission parameters, but there's someone out there sending a distress call. I don't care if it's human or alien. If they need help, we help. That's what we do. The crew exchanged glances. Then Olivia spoke up. The signal is very weak, Captain. Whoever sent it might not have much time left. All the more reason to hurry, Morrison said. Tina, set course. Sam, give me everything the engines can safely handle. The horizon changed direction, its powerful engines pushing it toward the mysterious signal. As they traveled, the crew worked to learn more about what they might find. Alan analyzed the signal pattern. It's definitely not human in origin. The encoding is unlike anything in our database. Can you tell how old it is? Morrison asked. Based on signal degradation, I'd estimate it's been broadcasting for at least 10 months, maybe longer. 10 months. The thought sobered everyone on the bridge. 10 months of waiting for rescue that never came. For the next 2 days, the horizon pushed toward the signal source. The crew took turns monitoring the beacon, which grew slightly stronger as they approached. Finally, Tina called out from her station. Captain, I'm detecting a small vessel ahead coming into visual range now. The main screen showed a sleek silver craft drifting in space. Its design was elegant but alien, with smooth curves and no visible external engines. Several sections of its hull were damaged, with dark scorch marks visible. Life signs? Morrison asked. Did Diana check the sensors? One very faint life sign. Extremely low metabolic rate, possibly in some form of stasis. Sam, Alan, prep for boarding, Morrison ordered. Olivia, keep trying to establish communication. Diana, gather whatever medical equipment you think might help an unknown alien species. Morrison stood in the middle of the bridge, eyes fixed on the damaged ship. Let's bring our shuttle in close and set up an entry point through their airlock. We need to move quickly but carefully. The crew prepared for boarding, gathering tools, scanners, and emergency equipment. Sam and Alan put on spacesuits designed for hostile environments. Diana prepared her medical kit with all manner of treatments, hoping something would work on an alien physiology. Remember, Morrison told the boarding team, we don't know what we're walking into. Stay in constant communication. At the first sign of trouble, you get out. The team nodded. They understood the risks. A damaged ship might have structural problems. An unknown alien species might react unpredictably to human rescuers. But none of them hesitated. As the boarding shuttle departed from the horizon, Morrison watched from the bridge. This wasn't in their mission briefing. It wasn't efficient or logical by the standards of many spacefaring races. But to the humans of the horizon, the choice was simple. Someone needed help, and they could provide it. Shuttle has docked with the alien vessel, Olivia reported. Boarding team is preparing to enter. On the alien ship, darkness waited. And in that darkness, sealed in a hibernation pod, an Aldari scientist named Kerizal floated in the space between life and death. Unaware, that the impossible had happened, that someone had heard his call, that despite all logic and probability, rescue had come. The airlock hissed open. Sam Kelly and Alan Peterson stepped onto the alien ship, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air was thin but breathable according to their suit sensors. They kept their helmets on anyway, not willing to take chances with unknown pathogens. "This is Kelly, we're inside," Sam reported through the comm system. His voice echoed in the empty corridor. "Gravity is minimal, air pressure low but present." "Copy that," came Morrison's voice from the horizon. "Proceed with caution." Alan moved, his light across the walls. Strange symbols were etched into the metal, glowing faintly with residual power. Fascinating design. The architecture suggests a species with different spatial concepts than humans. "Let's focus on finding the survivor," Sam reminded him. They floated down the main corridor using handholds built into the walls. Emergency lights flickered weakly, creating odd shadows. The ship felt dead except for the occasional hum of backup, systems fighting to stay online. Alan checked his scanner. "Life sign is getting stronger through that doorway ahead." The door was sealed shut. Sam examined the control panel beside it. No obvious way to open it. "Maybe if I—" "Wait," Alan said. He pointed his light at symbols above the panel. "I think this might be the bridge or control room. Important areas often have security measures." Sam nodded and pulled a small device from his tool belt. Universal interface module. Might be able to trick it into opening. He attached the device to the alien panel. Lights flickered as the human technology attempted to communicate with the alien system. After a tense minute, the door slid open halfway, then stopped. "That'll have to do," Sam said. They squeezed through the gap. Inside was what appeared to be the ship's control center. Dark consoles lined the walls. A viewport showed the stars outside. Plants grew in a small container near one station, purple leaves reaching toward a weak grow light. "Someone was trying to stay alive here," Alan said quietly. Their lights landed on a cylindrical pod in the center of the room. Frost covered a transparent section on top. Inside they could see a figure. "We found the survivor," Sam reported to the horizon. "Appears to be in some kind of stasis pod. Humanoid, but definitely not human." Diana's voice came through their comms. "Can you describe the pod? I need to know if it's safe to bring them out." Alan scanned the pod with his devices. "It seems to be a hibernation system, low temperature, slowed metabolism. Power levels are critical, less than 2 days of function remaining." "We got here just in time," Sam added. "Can you get the pod back to our ship?" Morrison asked. Sam examined the connections. "Negative. It's integrated into the ship's systems. We'd need to bring the alien out of stasis here." There was a pause before Diana responded. "I'm coming over. Don't attempt to open that pod until I get there." While they waited, Sam and Alan explored the bridge further. Alan found a data terminal that still had power. "I'm going to try to download their logs. Might help us understand who we're dealing with." Sam checked the ship's systems. Life support is running on emergency backup. Power reserves at less than 5%. This ship was hours away from becoming a tomb. 20 minutes later, Diana arrived with her medical kit. She examined the stasis pod carefully. "The controls are alien, but the principles should be similar to our tech." She connected a tablet to the pod's interface. "I'm going to initiate a gradual warming sequence. Too fast could kill them." The pod hummed as Diana's commands took effect. The frost on the transparent section began to melt. They could see the alien more clearly now, tall and slender with pale blue skin. 4 fingers on each hand. No hair on the elongated head. The alien's chest barely moved with shallow breaths. "Vital signs strengthening," Diana reported. "Let's prepare to open the pod once the warming cycle completes." Sam and Alan gathered blankets and emergency supplies. The pod's cycle took another 30 minutes before a soft chime indicated completion. Diana checked her readings one last time, then pressed what she hoped was the release button. The pod opened with a hiss of escaping gas. The alien remained unconscious, but its breathing deepened. Up close, they could see fine patterns on its skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. "Hello?" Diana said softly, knowing the alien couldn't hear. "We're here to help you." They carefully lifted the alien from the pod and wrapped it in thermal blankets. Its body was lighter than expected, almost fragile. Diana attached a small translator device to the alien's wrist, standard procedure for first contact situations. "Let's get him back to the horizon," Diana said. "I need better equipment to stabilize him properly." As they prepared to move the alien, its eyes suddenly opened. 4 pupils contracted in the light. The alien tried to speak but only managed a weak sound. Sam knelt beside it. "You're safe now. We heard your distress call." The translator on the alien's wrist blinked as it processed the sounds. The alien looked at each human in turn, confusion evident in its features. It tried again to speak. This time the translator produced words. "Who? What species?" "We're humans," Alan answered. "From Earth." The alien's eyes widened slightly. Recognition. "Humans. New species. Unpredictable." Its voice was thin through the translator. "That's us," Sam said with a smile behind his helmet. "Unpredictable enough to find you when no one else would." The alien seemed to struggle with this concept. "Why, rescue, resource expenditure, illogical." Diana checked the alien's vital signs. "We don't calculate value that way. We help because we can." The alien tried to sit up but was too weak. "Name, Kiraxal, Aldari Confederation." "Nice to meet you, Kiraxal," Diana said gently. "I'm Diana. These are Sam and Alan. We're taking you to our ship for medical treatment." Kiraxal's expression was unreadable to the humans, but the tension in his body was clear. "Aldari and humans. No formal relations. Why help unknown alien?" Sam shrugged. "Because you needed help. That's enough for us." This simple answer seemed to confuse Kiraxal more than anything else. He closed his eyes, perhaps processing the strange concept. "He's exhausted," Diana said. "Let's move him carefully. Sam, tell the captain we're bringing our guest home." They carefully carried Kiraxal from his dying ship to their shuttle. The alien drifted in and out of consciousness during the transfer. As they secured him for the journey to the horizon, Kiraxal opened his eyes once more. "My research," he said weakly. "Must save data." Alan held up a small device. "Already downloaded what I could. Your work is safe." A look of something like gratitude crossed Kiraxal's face before he slipped back into unconsciousness. The shuttle detached from the stellar seeker and returned to the horizon, carrying its unexpected passenger from the brink of death to a new beginning and a first close encounter between humans and Aldari. Kiraxal woke in a strange room. The ceiling was curved metal, painted a soft cream color. The lights were brighter than on his ship, but somehow gentler on his eyes. He tried to sit up and found he could. His strength was returning. "Take it easy. There," a voice said. Diana Wright approached his bed with a smile. "You've been unconscious for almost 2 days." Kiraxal studied the human female. Her skin was a rich brown. Her hair was pulled back from her face and she wore a uniform with a medical symbol. The translator on his wrist converted her words perfectly now. "I am on the human vessel," Kiraxal stated. Diana nodded. "The horizon. Yes, how are you feeling?" "Feeling." An odd question to an Aldari. They rarely discussed feelings. "My body functions at 64% of optimal capacity. Significant improvement." Diana laughed softly. "That's a very precise answer. I meant, are you in pain? Comfortable? Hungry?" Kiraxal considered these questions. "No pain. Some discomfort from muscle atrophy. Nutritional intake would be beneficial." "I'll get you something to eat," Diana said. "We've been feeding you intravenously, but solid food would be better. Our research suggests your species can eat most of the same proteins and carbohydrates humans can." While Diana prepared food, Kiraxal examined the medical bay. The technology was different from Aldari designs. Less elegant, but somehow more adaptable. Screens displayed his vital signs in human symbols with notes added by hand. So inefficient, yet functional. Diana returned with a tray. Try these. Simple foods to start. Kersal examined the offerings, a clear broth, some soft bread, and fruit cut into small pieces. He tasted each carefully. The flavors were stronger than Eldari food, almost overwhelming. The sensory experience is intense, he said. Diana smiled again. Too spicy? Not unpleasant, just different. Kirgzal continued eating, noting how the human watched him with open curiosity. In Eldari culture, such staring would be impolite. You have questions. Hundreds, Diana admitted. You're the first Eldari any of us have met in person. Our species have only had formal contact through diplomatic channels. I also have questions, Kirgzal said. Your captain diverted your mission to investigate my signal. Why? Before Diana could answer, the medical bay door opened. Captain Morrison entered, followed by Alan Peterson. Our guest is awake, Morrison said. Welcome aboard the Horizon, Kirgzal. I'm Captain Frank Morrison. Kirgzal attempted the human greeting gesture he had observed, a nod of the head. Thank you for my rescue, Captain Morrison. Call me Frank, the captain said, sitting in a chair, near the bed. How's our patient doing, Diana? Recovering well. His species is remarkably resilient. The hibernation preserved his muscle mass better than human stasis would have. Alan stepped forward. I've been studying the data we recovered from your ship. Your research on spatial anomalies is fascinating. Kirgzal's eyes brightened. You saved my research data? Everything we could download, Alan confirmed. I'd love to discuss your findings when you're feeling stronger. I would welcome scientific exchange, Kirgzal said. Then he returned to his earlier question. But I still do not understand why you rescued me. The Eldari Confederation abandoned the search after standard protocols were completed. It was logical. The probability of finding a single life in vast space. We don't make those kinds of calculations when lives are at stake, Morrison interrupted gently. Not the way your people seem to. Kirgzal blinked his four-pupiled eyes. But resources are finite. Efficiency is essential for species survival. Efficiency isn't everything, Morrison said. Compassion matters too. This concept troubled Kirgzal. His entire life had been governed by logical principles. The needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few. It was the foundation of Eldari society. May I see your ship? Kirgzal asked suddenly. When my strength permits. I wish to understand humans better. Morrison smiled. Of course. When Diana says you're ready. 3 days later, Kirgzal was strong enough to tour the horizon. Morrison guided him through the ship, explaining each section. The alien walked slowly, still adapting to human gravity settings. This is our greenhouse, Morrison said as they entered a large room filled with plants. We grow about 30% of our food here. Kirgzal examined the plants with interest, similar to my small garden but much larger. Sam mentioned you kept plants alive on your ship. Pretty impressive under those conditions. Life adapts, Kirgzal said simply, even when logic suggests it should not. They continued to the engine room, where Sam Kelly was checking systems. She waved when she saw them. Our rescue mission used more fuel than planned, Morrison explained. Sam's been working on ways to extend our range so we can still complete our primary mission. A problem created by my rescue, Kirgzal noted. A problem with a solution, Sam corrected, approaching them. I've recalibrated the antimatter injection sequence. Should give us an extra 12% efficiency. Innovative approach, Kirgzal commented after examining her work. Eldari engineers would not attempt such adaptations without extensive testing. Sam grinned. Humans call it winging it. Sometimes the best solutions come from necessity. The final stop was the bridge. Olivia, Grant and Tina Rodriguez were at their stations. They looked up with interest as Kirksall entered. "This is where we heard your distress call," Morrison said. "Olivia picked up your signal." Olivia smiled. "It was very faint. We almost missed it." "But you did not miss it," Kirksall said. "When all logic suggested you should." "Logic isn't everything," Tina said. "Sometimes you have to trust instinct." Kirksall stood at the viewport looking out at the stars. "My people would say instinct is primitive. That logic elevated us beyond such things." "And what do you say?" Morrison asked quietly. Kirksall was silent for a long moment. "I say that logic did not save me. Humans did." He turned to face the crew. "Logic told me I would die alone. Humans proved logic wrong." Later that evening, Kirksall sat in the ship's common area with several crew members. They shared stories of their worlds, their cultures, their differences and similarities. Humans laughed often. They touched each other casually, a hand on a shoulder, a gentle push. Physical contact that would be rare among Eldari. "Your species confuses me," Kirksall admitted. "You are inefficient, emotional, unpredictable, yet you have achieved space travel. You explore without guaranteed return on resource investment. You risked your mission for a single alien life." "Maybe that's why we explore," Alan suggested. "Not for resources, but to connect, to find others out there, learn from them, help when we can." "Perhaps," Kirksall said thoughtfully, "there is a logic to your illogic that my people have not considered." The humans smiled at this, and for the first time, Kirksall found himself attempting to smile back, an expression his species rarely used. It felt strange, it felt right. 2 weeks passed aboard the Horizon. Kirksall regained his full strength and spent his days learning about humans. He worked with Alan in the science lab, comparing notes on spatial anomalies. He helped Sam make improvements to the ship's cooling systems using Eldari techniques. He even joined the crew for meals, slowly getting used to the loud conversations and laughter. "We'll reach Outpost 7 in 3 days," Captain Morrison announced during breakfast. "You'll be able to arrange transport back to Eldari space from there." Kirksall. The table fell silent. Until now, no one had spoken much about Kirksall leaving. The crew had grown used to his presence, his formal speech patterns, his questions about human behavior. "Thank you, Captain," Kirksall said. "The Confederation will send a diplomatic vessel once I contact them." Later that day, Kirksall stood with Diana in the observatory, watching stars streak by as the horizon traveled at high speed. "Will you be glad to return home?" Diana asked. Kirksall considered the question. Home is logical, familiar. But what? "I am not the same Eldari who left on the research mission. My time alone changed me. My time with humans changed me more." Diana nodded. "Experiences shape us. That's true for humans too. My people will find my new perspectives challenging," Kirksall admitted. "Eldari do not value emotional considerations in decision-making. They will see my time with humans as contamination of pure logic." "Is that how you see it?" Kirksall watched a distant star glimmer. "No. I see it as evolution, adaptation. The plants in my garden changed to survive in harsh conditions. Perhaps I have done the same." The next day, the Horizon encountered trouble. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Kirksall rushed to the bridge with the rest of the crew. "What's happening?" Morrison demanded as he entered. Tina looked up from her console, face tight with worry. Spatial distortion forming directly ahead, similar to the one that damaged Kirksall's ship. On the main screen, space itself seemed to ripple and fold. The stars beyond warped and blurred. "Evasive maneuvers," Morrison ordered. "Get us clear of that thing." "Too late," Tina replied. "We're already in its gravitational field. It's pulling us in." Kirksall stepped forward. "Captain, I recognize this phenomenon. It is what my research team was studying when my ship was damaged." All eyes turned to him. "The anomaly creates waves of gravitational distortion," Kirksall explained quickly. "They will tear your ship apart unless you align with the wave patterns." Morrison looked at him sharply. Can you help us navigate through it? I believe so. My research data contains partial mapping of the phenomenon. Tina, give Kirzal access to navigation, Morrison ordered without hesitation. Kirzal took position at a console. His fingers moved rapidly over the unfamiliar controls. The key is to match the ship's movement to the oscillation pattern of the anomaly, like swimming with a current instead of against it. Alan joined him, pulling up Kirzal's research data. I see it. The pattern repeats every 17.3 seconds. The ship must follow this path, Kirzal said, sending coordinates to Tina's station. Precise timing is essential. Morrison nodded to Tina. Do it. The horizon adjusted course, aligning with the patterns Kirzal provided. The ship shuddered as gravitational waves washed over it. Warning lights flashed on multiple systems. Hull stress at 86%, Sam reported from engineering. We're holding, but barely. Stay the course, Kirzal said. We are approaching the central node. Once past it, the waves will propel us clear. The view screen showed the heart of the anomaly, a swirling vortex of energy and distorted space-time. It was beautiful and terrifying. Now, Kirzal called. Full thrust for 3.5 seconds, then cut all power. Morrison gave the order. The horizon surged forward, engines screaming. Then silence as all power cut. For a breathless moment, the ship drifted directly toward the center of the vortex. Then, like a leaf caught in a sudden wind, the horizon was flung clear of the anomaly. The stars stabilized on the view screen. The ship's systems returned to normal. We made it, Tina breathed, slumping in her chair. Morrison turned to Kirzal. You saved my ship and my crew. Kirzal blinked slowly. You saved me first. It was logical to return the favor. The bridge erupted in laughter and cheers. Humans clapped Kirzal on the back, shook his hand, even hugged him. The physical contact no longer bothered him as it once had. The day before, reaching Outpost 7, Kirzal requested a meeting with Captain Morrison in his private office. I have made a decision, Kirzal said. I wish to remain aboard the Horizon as a science officer and cultural liaison. Morrison raised his eyebrows. Not return to the Confederation? I will contact my government, of course, explain what happened. But I believe I can serve a greater purpose here, with humans. May I ask why? Kirzal clasped his hands in front of him. The anomaly we encountered. It is only one of many spatial phenomena that threaten travelers in this region. My research, combined with human intuitive problem-solving, saved your ship when pure Aldari logic or pure human instinct alone might have failed. You're suggesting a partnership, Morrison said. Yes. Formal relations between our species are minimal, diplomatic contact only, but I have seen firsthand what humans and Aldari can accomplish together. Your compassion and adaptability, combined with our technical knowledge and logical approach, it is a powerful combination. Morrison smiled. And personally, what do you want, Kirzal? Not as an Aldari scientist, but as an individual. The question would have confused Kirzal weeks ago. Aldari did not usually consider personal wants separate from collective needs. But now he understood. I want to continue learning about humans, about myself, about what I become when not bound by pure logic. He paused. And I have come to value the companionship of this crew. You are more than colleagues, a concept my people would struggle to understand. We call it friendship, Morrison said, gently. Yes, friendship. A human concept I find logical in its own way. When the Horizon docked at Outpost 7 the next day, Kirzal stood with the crew as they prepared to resupply. He wore a human uniform now, altered to fit his taller frame, a communication badge with both human and Aldari symbols pinned to his chest. The Aldari officials who came to meet him were visibly shocked by his appearance, his comfort among humans, his easy use of their gestures and expressions. Scientist, Kirzal, we assumed you would return with us, the senior official said stiffly. I am staying with the humans, Kirzal replied. I will serve as liaison between our species. My reports will detail everything I learn. This is highly irregular. The Confederation will need to evaluate this decision. Captain Morrison stepped forward. Your colleague has saved my ship and crew. We would consider it an honor to have him continue serving aboard the Horizon. As the officials conferred among themselves, Olivia leaned close to Kirzal. Are you sure about this? It's a big step. Kirzal nodded. The logical path is not always the right one. Humans taught me that. He looked around at the crew, at his friends. Some journeys are worth taking even when the destination is unknown. The Horizon departed Outpost 7 3 days later with its supplies restocked and its unusual crew member officially assigned as a diplomatic liaison. As the ship jumped to high speed heading toward unexplored regions, Kirzal stood on the bridge, no longer abandoned, no longer alone. A human expression came to his mind, one that seemed fitting for his journey from isolated logic to connected emotion. Sometimes you had to get lost to be found.